From junior go-karting through to open-wheel Formula Ford, exotic sports cars, and now supercars, David's journey has overcome tragedy to triumph in the world's most competitive formula of motorsport.
Some days, yeah.
Mr. David Reynolds, thank you for joining me.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you. It's awesome.
We're only just met and we've tucked into some beautiful steak.
You can never have a bad one, can you?
Like I said, it was a bit overs. It was a bit overs for me, but it's perfect.
You can never have a bad one. That's my motto. And you eat a few of them a day. Who cares how they are? They all taste good.
You've had an interesting week.
Yeah, so we just finished Bathurst and I had a massive crash in qualifying. Which was not good. And I haven't had a crash like that for probably 10 years. And yeah, destroyed my car and they fixed it overnight, which is mammoth effort by the team. So they literally did probably a week's work in 12 hours, which is huge. They pretty much work all night. Some of the boys finish up at 6 a.m, go home, have a shower, and then they come back to the track. Like, they're super dedicated people. But the damage was probably a bit too big. So yeah, we soldiered on from there. But like, man, my car was real buckled after that, quite slow.
Did it affect it after that?
Yeah. So in the race, we were the slowest car by a lot. So generally, I'm not that slow. So
does that affect you mentally, or?
Not really. No. Like you always have that mental aspect of never give up, even though probably some days you probably should. Like you always think you got a possibility. Like, you know, during the race, you do like 6 stops, so you come into pit lane 6 times over the 1,000 Ks, or, you know, minimum 6, and you try and always do like changes, or like there are things you can do during that stop, like ride height, roll bar, droop restrictions, things like that, to make the car better balanced. But I think our chassis was too far gone. When they got back on Monday, they pulled it all apart and they started measuring up, and one side was a lot lower in the front and shorter, so it's obviously being hit on that front right and caved in that side.
How long have you been doing it for?
Racing? I actually started when I was 6 years old in 1991. Is that 6? Was I 6? Yeah, 6 years old.
85 you were born?
85, yep. And I retired in 94.
Tennis?
Yeah, I played tennis for a bit, but like I say I retired because I used to get way too nervous before every race. Like, I used to get so fucking nervous that I couldn't deal with it, and I packed it in. I just couldn't deal with my nerves. And then I played tennis for a bit and played 5 days a week, before school, after school, everything like that. And then somehow started racing karts again, and the rest is history.
How did you overcome the nerves?
Well, I still got really nervous. Like, before races, I got really, really nervous. I still get, it depends on where you are in the grid. If you qualify on pole, you get nervous. But if you qualify 25th, you're not so nervous because there's no real pressure because your car is a bit of a piece of shit. So obviously when you're on pole, the spotlight's on you, you've got a fast car, you know you got a chance to win, you got 25 blokes trying to beat you. But how do I combat those nerves? I don't know. It's just something I got used to over time. But I've always noticed the more I care about something, the more nervous I get. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah, so...
100%. Mate, I had a few nerves coming just before we started speaking.
Oh, really? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, but it's as soon as you catch up, you're like...
As soon as it starts, it all goes away. And that's as soon as you rolled out of pit lane, all those nerves disappeared. I remember doing Carrera Cup races back in the day, like 2006 and 7, before the dummy. I was on the dummy grid, so it's like the pre-grid before you drive on the track, mate. I was out of my car, dry reaching. Everyone thought I was throwing up, like something was wrong with me, but I was just so nervous and so bound up my nerves that I would start dry reaching. It was funny. I look back and it's funny, but yeah, that was just me.
Did you know you wanted to be an elite driver, I guess, at a young age?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Like, I suppose whatever I did, I wanted to be the best at it, whether I was playing roller hockey, inline hockey, field hockey, basketball. Like, these are the sports I grew up playing. Go-karts, tennis, I always wanted to be the best, and I had that mentality where I just had to win. And that's probably what drove me to success, I suppose, because you know there's no good finishing second and you're the first loser, so that always sticks in your head, and winning's everything.
You mentioned to me yesterday that there's probably more ups than downs.
Yes, in motor racing there's plenty.
More downs than ups.
There's plenty more downs than there are ups. unless you're cheating. Because, like, I suppose if you play a normal sport like cricket or football or tennis or something, you're only versing another person. You got a 50% chance of winning that match or that game. In motor racing, in our sport, there's 25 drivers, so you got a 4% chance of winning a race just based on the numbers, because there's more people trying to win the race, isn't there? So, you spend more time, unless you're in the best team that hire all the best people to build all the best cars, your chances of winning are fairly low. So you actually have to realise your realistic goals on most days.
Is that hard to do?
Very hard to do, because, a really good goal for you or for your team might be 5th, even though internally you achieve that goal and it's like, far out, there's 4 blokes in front of me. That sucks. Like, the win was just there, or, why couldn't we achieve that? So, yeah, it's a constant battle, motor racing, and no one really sees that you actually lose more times than you win. No matter, you look at the best driver, their win ratio would be only 20%, and they're the best driver of all time. So 80% of the time they're losing.
You said something on another podcast, sorry.
Did I?
That was interesting. And you've done a few, so I had a few to listen to.
I'm sorry.
You said, like I said to you before yesterday, it's weird when you catch up with someone and you listen to them so much on a podcast.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
They're in live, in person.
So I prefer the live, obviously. When you win, it feels so easy, and when you come 20th, it feels so hard.
So hard. There's no better statement than that. When you win, it's so easy. Like, fuck, I could do this every day, every week. And then the next day you turn up and you can't. And it's like, what changed? And that's the hardest thing about motor racing. It's the most frustrating sport you could ever imagine, because the highs are so high and so easy, and the lows are so low and so difficult. And when you come in 10th, you're like, how's that bloke in front lapping half a second faster than me? It doesn't make sense. Last weekend he was half a second slower. How's this possible? And in half a second is a long time in our sport. So, yeah, it's just the most frustrating sport in the world. And you won't know it until you've actually competed.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. And I said to you, I'm not sure if you can remember when we first spoke, I said, you must just be an adrenaline junkie almost.
Yeah, well, I think I was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was always doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it was, we were always just... So I grew up with a bunch of my cousins. So there was my brother and 3 other boys, my 2 cousins, Jono and Sam, and my other cousin, Alex, and we're all similar ages, and we just did stupid shit together all the time. It was the best childhood of my life, and we all played similar sports, and I think we just pushed each other to the limit, and sometimes we'd step over it a lot, broken arms, or my cousin... I don't know, I'm going to tell the story, but we started street lugeing.
What's that?
Like when you lie on your skateboard and just go down the hill as fast as you can. Stupid. Like,
I've never done that.
Well, that's what you do in all-wheel donga. So instead of standing up, getting the death wobbles, we used to lie on our skateboards and street luge down, and we found the biggest hill in Albury we could find, and it's quite big. And we went down it one day, and my cousin fell off and took half his ass off, like just ground it off. And he got 2 months off school because he couldn't sit down. So just stupid shit like that.
I'd argue that's safer than actually standing up.
Well, it could be. It should be, yeah. Because obviously, when you stand up, you get the death wobbles because of the weight. But when you lower to the ground, the weight's a bit easier to control. So, but we had our dad follow us in the car behind us to measure our speed. We got 65 k's an hour, and we're 12 years old. It was just, but that was my dad. He didn't care.
I was going to say, did that? I'm just thinking of a typical dad that wouldn't encourage that behaviour.
Yeah.
Was that openness and that looseness useful, I guess, in your formative years?
Probably, yeah. Because my dad, who is a dentist by trade, which is quite a mundane, boring job, apparently, but my old man loves it. And he used to race rally cars late 80s, early 90s. And I suppose when you grow up in Albury, back in the days, it would have been in the 90s, things were a bit more freer. There wasn't so much restriction or helicopter parents around, or things like that. So we used to go out to the place called Mungab, which is just like a reserve, and we used to tie ropes behind the car and tie it to our bike, and our parents used to tow us around. It was super dangerous, but that's just what you did as kids. It was just, we just took risk all the time. We didn't know it at the time, but it was fun, heaps of fun. We had Pee Wee 50s, Pee Wee 80s, everything like that, and crashed them, and just had the best. I had the best childhood ever, and I'd love to give my kids the same experience, even though it's going to be hard.
I was going to ask that question. How do you do that with your kids?
Well, I can't be in Melbourne for one. I probably could, but I'd have to move like further out. But to grow up in a country town, I'd probably steer towards that. But I don't know when that's going to be. So, and it's really up to my missus whether she wants to move to a country town. But I could honestly move to Albury and have a lot of support, because in Melbourne we've got no family, no one around. Our parents, my parents in Albury, her parents are in Brisbane and Darwin, so everyone's miles away. So like when you have kids, you realise how useful your grandparents can be, and it's important to have family around you. You don't realise that until you have kids.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do kids change your life?
The most I've ever been changing my life by a factor of 1 million, I think. Like, yeah, it's crazy how much they change your life. You don't think about it at the time, but just over time, you're like, fuck, I'd rather hang out with my kids than hang out with my friends. So I hardly ever see my friends anymore, which sucks, but creating the best memories with my kids, which is the most important thing to me.
I wouldn't think you're alone there.
No, exactly, no. And I used to look at my old man and I'm like, where's all his friends? And I realised he just hangs out with me. I'm his friend.
You'll never know the feeling of a driver when winning a race. The helmet hides feelings that cannot be understood.
That's true. Who said that?
Your favourite, Ayrton Senna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a very true statement.
How has that represented itself in your life? I mean, and I want to go back to that winning piece as well.
Yeah.
Do you think you're misunderstood?
Do I think I'm misunderstood? Oh, probably. Yeah, probably. I just enjoy my life and have a good laugh. And when I'm at the racetrack, I'm trying to make people enjoy their jobs too. So I'm always piss farting around and doing shit. And I suppose ever since I was at school, I always used to have meetings with the principal every year telling myself I need to grow up, but I've never did. I feel like I'm the exact same person I was at high school, just mucking around, having a good time. So I suppose I'm misunderstood, even though when you put on the helmet, all the jokes stop. You're super serious about your job, your craft, and everyone that puts in their time to make that car the way it is. You kind of hide it. You don't have, when I race, I don't have any humour. It's all focus and process. But when I'm outside the car, I'm always fucking around, just being an idiot.
What is your...
Not being an idiot.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It.
What, if someone was to see you just before a race, what would they see?
Depends where you are in the grid. Like, I suppose if I'm nervous, I get more focused, because when I get really nervous, that's when I start just, I suppose, like focusing on the one thing I have to do. But when I'm down the back of the grid, I'm kind of just enjoying it, because I know winning the race is going to be really hard from 25th or whatever it is. So it depends. I can change.
I heard someone say that you're close with that you drive best when Dave's Dave.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand that statement, I suppose, maybe.
It's more just like when you're being yourself.
Yeah, when you're being yourself, like you're not... In our sport, obviously, there's lots of sponsors and lots of money invested from the team side and the sponsor side. So I suppose there's a level of expectation from you to talk a certain way or act a certain way and, be corporatized, I suppose, where when I first started, mate, I was terrible at that, like so bad. I couldn't do what they wanted me to do.
Why is that?
I don't know, like anytime they put me in front of a camera, my brain would turn off and I couldn't even talk, like I was broken. And all you had to do was film me and I'd break. And because I was trying to think of all these scenarios to say, and I generally would select the wrong one until I grew up, I suppose. Not that I grew up, but I just realised, fuck it, who cares? Like, just say what you think and whatever comes into your head, say it. And if it's wrong, I don't know. Is there a wrong thing to say? I don't know. Like, I don't want to get all philosophical. Philosophical, that's a word. I sound like Bill Brownless, saying all the wrong words. Yeah, but I just realised, like, who cares? Like, just say everything you think and just move on.
To you, what's the power of authenticity then?
Yeah, well, to be original is like one of the most powerful things ever, I think. And that's what people love. They love to see original characters, original thinking, original ideas. That is awesome. And that's what you do well. Like, you know, that's how I found you. I love steak. I eat steak all the time, every day, a couple of times a day. And yeah, I found your page and I found that original and no one else is doing it. So I followed you and now I'm here talking to you.
Mate, I'm very grateful for it.
And so am I.
Genuinely, like, yeah, the connection piece, I think, is what I spoke about yesterday, is like the thing that's driving me at the moment, though.
Yeah, okay.
And obviously when people follow, I mean, it makes it easier to get people on.
It does. But you realise, like, it's quite a small world. Everyone knows everyone. It's so weird.
Yeah, like I said, with your connections, I've tried to speak to as many people as I can, but
yeah,
like, I don't want to go over and above and speak to too many people. And I think you're, I guess, high profile enough, I guess. There's enough out there that I don't need to
races cars on a weekend. Like, that's all I am.
People say to me all the time, you have no fear. I tell them, no, that's not true. I'm scared all the time. You have to have fear in order to have courage. I'm a courageous person because I'm a scared person.
Who said that? I didn't say that.
No, you didn't.
I would never say that.
No. Do you agree with it, though?
To an extent, I suppose, yeah. I suppose, like, in motor racing, I can only speak on my experience.
Of course.
When you're in the zone, you have no fear. It's gone. It's disappeared. But, like, even on the weekend at Bathurst, like in qualifying, I thought I was in the zone. My lap times were bang on. And I had no fear until something went slightly wrong and I couldn't control it and had a massive crash. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's funny. Like, when something goes wrong in the race car, you're going so fast and the walls are concrete. But when you're in the zone, they actually feel like styrofoam because you don't see them as a boundary in a way. Like, it's weird until something goes completely wrong, and then you hit the fence. It's like, fuck, that was a big crash. Oh yeah, that's concrete I hit. It's the weirdest sort of conundrum in your head you're playing with.
Can you describe what being in the zone feels like for you?
Being in the zone would be just a single focus on one thing. When everything else, like when you're in the zone, it's so easy to compete and so easy to do your job, and everything just happens naturally, and there's no other thoughts going on in your head that cloud your judgment, I suppose. You're just thinking of the process, I suppose, and that's just how to drive the car, where am I braking. You're actually not even thinking about that, it's just happening. It's really weird. And Ayrton Senna describes it really well. It's like you're watching yourself from above and you're just seeing this character play out below you, and it's you, but you're driving a car. It's weird. He
said something about, like, you're driving it, but you're not. Yeah,
it's just, you're on. It's autopilot. It's like someone's playing you in a simulation game, but you're watching yourself getting played, even though you feel like you can't control yourself, but you are controlling yourself. It's the weirdest mashing of things. But sometimes, like, you know, you can win races like that, or you can win races and you feel like you've felt everything. You've had every thought perfect, or you've had you're controlling yourself, and other times someone's controlling you. It's the weirdest thing. And even though you won the race, it's the same outcome, but you've gone about it in other ways, if you know what I mean. And sometimes when you're on autopilot, you don't remember anything. It's like have you ever trance drove?
No.
So when you're driving around town and you forgot how you got there, oh yeah, I just woke up and I'm here.
I did that today.
How did that happen?
I did that today, actually.
Did you?
I ran a red.
That's not good.
It was bad. I'm like, literally halfway through and I'm like, oh shit.
That's not good.
No. 6 a.m. in the morning.
It's kind of like that in a way. 6 a.m. What are you doing up at 6 a.m.?
I train in the mornings.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, get it out of the way.
Nice.
And suddenly I realised that I was no longer driving the car consciously. I was driving it by instinct, only I was in a different dimension.
I just said that, didn't I? Yeah.
You did.
In a roundabout way, yeah.
Does that, how could you put it emotional? Would you describe what that actually feels like when you're in that state?
How do you describe it? I don't know. It's hard to describe unless you felt it. It's hard to describe feelings, isn't it? Really hard to describe. But it's like, it's a cool feeling. When you come out of it, it's like, hang on, that just happened and I feel like I had no part in it whatsoever.
I remember you saying in the last 2 laps of your 2017 win in Bathurst, you were shedding a tear.
Well, I was feeling everything at the time. I was conscious of what was going on. My car was brilliant, like really good to drive, and it was brilliant all week. And I was getting butterflies. I was starting to like dry reach because I knew what was about to happen. And I was nearly throwing up 2 laps to go.
Really? Why is that?
Because just nervous of, I suppose, the unknown of winning that race. And for us, that race is everything. It's like it's a weird feeling. It's cool though. It's the best feeling.
Yeah, I was going to say, would that be the career highlight, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Anytime you win that race, it's the best race you could ever win.
What happened afterwards?
Like party-wise?
Just everything, emotion-wise.
So like you pull on, you drive your car off the track and you pull up under the big podium presentation section, and there's just a massive crowd around you and you're the only car there. Where normally they'd have like the top 3 cars, so it's 1, 2, 3, so you kind of share the podium with 2 other people or 2 other teams or drivers. But this Bathurst is all about the winner, so you literally, it's the only race of the year that they celebrate just the winner pretty much. Obviously you go on the podium, there's 2 other people there, or there's actually 4 because there's teams of 2 people, but the focus is on the winner. So you pull up there and you're just met with excitement and happiness and craziness, and everyone comes up and they just can't believe the day we've had. And because obviously that day there was rain, it was dry, it was rain, there was crashes, and it was just a crazy race, and to come out on top was just the best feeling.
On the topic of ups and downs, I know we referenced at the start, the down after something like that, was that something you dealt with?
The down after?
Yeah, because you went to like the peak.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you maintained a peak for a certain amount of time.
Well, it was until pretty much the next race, which was, I think, would have been the Gold Coast 600 back then. And I think our performance was shit. Like, I don't remember it being quite memorable at all. So literally 2 weeks later, you're back out slogging in qualifying, trying to be on pole. But I think we did end up in the 10, but we weren't as quick as what we were around before. So I was brought back to reality 2 weeks later.
What's your relationship like with driving now compared to when you started?
What's my relationship? That's a good question. I never thought about it. My relationship with driving. Far out. I suppose like when I first started, it's all about your own performance and your own, I don't know, journey, I suppose, to make yourself better. I suppose you get to a point where the car can only go so fast, and then I suppose my relationship now would be changing. It's all about making the car the best and the focus on the team and trying to make them better, if that makes sense. So,
are you critical of yourself?
Yeah, always. Like, there's no one more disappointed than me if I've made a mistake out on the track. There's no one more disappointed, so I don't need anyone, teammate, team boss, anyone come telling me I fucked up, because I know I fucked up. I know something's gone wrong before anyone else does. So, and I'm the most, like, you'll talk to all the drivers and we're all super critical of our own performance, so we don't need anyone telling us we've done something wrong because we're already, I suppose, down about it.
Well, in a game of milliseconds, I'm assuming it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like our lap speed is, over 60 seconds. You could be a tenth off the pace and feel like the world's collapsing. It's the weirdest feeling in the world, and literally you can't even get a tenth on a stopwatch. But over a minute, it's a long time in our sport. Would you see it as a burden that you're so self-critical? But I see it in me as well. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, definitely. It can. Every good point has their down point. Yeah. And every bad point has a good point. So I suppose over time you learn all this. How do you separate? You always learn about yourself more than you would in going through any experience, I suppose, and how you reacted to it, or how you become more resilient about it, or if you're not really resilient, how do you become more resilient? I suppose resilience is a really important thing in our sport, because like I said at the start, you lose more times than you win, and if you're not critical in yourself and you're not resilient, you'll probably never go anywhere in our sport, because it's actually quite demoralising when you look at the stats on yourself. It's like, far out. I haven't won that much.
How has resilience shown itself in your career?
I suppose I've had heaps and heaps of times, like on the weekend, you have a big crash, you do the race and you're slow. During the week, you got to really think about how you're going to bounce back and come back hard and try and win the next race and come out fast and be competitive. So that happens week in, week out.
And the topic of, I'm keen to discuss how your self-critique of yourself as well. So I think it's something that, I guess you said, everyone battles with it.
Everyone,
Are there ways
everyone that wants to be successful.
Yeah. Are there ways that has helped that, or do you think it's gotten better over time? Or
I suppose the more times you have an experience like that, I suppose the easier it becomes. And I suppose you can use tools, like you can go to sports psychologists and they can tell you to breathe. Like, a lot of people forget to breathe, funnily enough. Like at Bathurst, you literally hold your breath from the bottom of the mountain till you turn on Conrad Straight, because you just don't have, you're tense, you're trying to manage this 1,300 kilo car, 650 horsepower across a mountain where it's moving around. You don't have much downforce or tyre, so the car's moving, and you're literally holding onto the steering wheel and not breathing. So a lot of people forget to breathe. So you got to teach yourself, actually, I've got to learn to breathe again. And that's a very small tool to deal with anxiety or anything like that. So just simple things make a big difference.
The anxiety piece.
Anxiety, or just having a simple process in your brain where you're, like the times where it's not happening on autopilot, you actually got to be conscious of what you're thinking about and what you're trying to achieve. So you have like a very systematic approach of, okay, this is what I'm trying to achieve, every corner, okay, corner by corner focus, marker by marker, whatever it might be. And that goes through your head, and that will replay, say there's 70 different markers in your head you're thinking about over the lap. And that will go lap in for 100 laps or whatever it will take to become autopilot.
Do you know when you're in autopilot, like beforehand, the day when you wake up?
Looking back, yes, but at the time, no.
Yeah.
It sort of just happens, and then you look back at that weekend and go, fuck, mate, that was an easy weekend for me. Like, I'd full of life, full of energy, and everything happened how it should. And other times, you're like, far out, you just know you're not 100% on it, if you know what I mean. You might be 95% there. And I suppose the trick is, over a long career, is to manage that the best you can, to not have days when you're 60%, have it when you're 90%, not 100%. So you always front up in the best possible, present yourself in the best possible way.
Has your career been longer than average?
I don't really know. I've never really thought about that. I suppose I got in 2009 and I actually got sacked the first year. I got stood down. And,
why is that?
Because I wasn't fast enough.
Okay.
And so I was part of a 4-car team, and over time, 4-car teams don't tend to work. It's always 2-car teams that work, because it's easier to have 2-car teams firing all cylinders than it is 4 cars, because there's way more resources to take up, and the 4th car always gets the development parts, I've worked out. So the bits that the 2 cars the 2 main cars I'll talk about, they always get the best parts, and then it's like a filtering process down, if you know what I mean, for saving, for money saving, whatever it might be. So 4-car teams are generally really, really hard to do well in the 4th car. So I was the 4th car in my first year. And then they put me as an enduro driver for the HRT team in 2010. And I was with Will Davison that year, and we had a great year. We probably should end up 3rd at Bathurst, but Will had a big crash at the top of the mountain with about 10 laps to go and broke one of his ribs. And what else happened that year? Far out. And then at the end of that year, I moved to Kelly Racing, and then I've been full-time ever since. So, yeah, what's that? That's 13 years of full-time racing.
I never had a plan B. If you have a plan B, you're giving yourself the chance to never accomplish plan A. My plan B is to accomplish plan A.
100%, hey. I actually love that. I know I said that, but I've noticed time and time again, people who start thinking about their plan B becomes their plan A, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like, far out, I watch that time and time again, and then I'm like, everyone's like, what are you going to do after racing? I'm like, I don't care, I'll figure out that when it comes. And then whenever racing finishes or full-time driving finishes with me, I'll come up with another plan A.
Do you get asked that a lot?
All the time.
Do you think
what are you
that's...
going to do? And I got asked that from when I was 20 years old.
Really? I was going to say, do you think that's more so, because I think you touched on the fact that you're coming up on 40.
Yes.
I was going to ask, do you think that's more because you're coming up on 40? And I'm genuinely not sure what the average age is that people retire in.
Well, I don't know either.
Yeah.
In motor racing, it's not a physical sport. There's a small physical part, but it's all mental. So when I was 20 years old, everyone used to say, what are you going to do when you finish racing? I'm like, fuck, I don't know. Like, I'm 20. Like, I just want to win races and go race around the world and have a good time. And I still have those feelings. And when I was 21 years old, I was competing in Carrera Cup, and I thought I was like the fastest young kid around and everything. I used to get my ass handed to me every week by a guy named Jim Richards, who was 58 years old with big Coke bottle glasses on, and he drilled me, mate. Like, he was so incredibly good, it was ridiculous. And he was 58. He was like 2 years off getting a senior citizen card, getting a free tram ride around the city. Like, he was that good. And so in motor racing, you can actually go as long as you want to. But, you know, obviously the older you get, people start talking about, what are you going to do after? And it's like, fuck, I don't know, man. Like, just let me do what I want first. Obviously you have kids, people start getting into other businesses, that business becomes their plan B, and sure enough, their plan A gets forgotten.
I could see you becoming the next Anthony Chaffee, mate.
No, definitely not. He's too smart. He's a legend. He's actually a really cool guy.
He is a good man.
Super calm.
Yeah.
And man, what a smart guy he is. He's like one of the smartest people you'll ever come across.
You touched on You touched on it being a proportion physical and then predominantly mental.
Yes.
I think I could sort of see why you say that, but do you want to elaborate further on why you think that is?
Well, I suppose like in motor racing, you don't have to bench press a lot. You don't have to run it particularly well or swim. There's no real physical aspect. The physical aspect would be driving the car on the limit, dealing with the heat. So the heat's a really bad thing for us, and obviously sauna really helps out.
Really?
So yeah, big time. So in our cars, in the old cars, not the new cars, are a little bit the Gen 3. So we've had 3 generations of supercars: the Gen 1, which is called the Blueprint, then the Gen 2 car, which is the one where they run from 2013 till 2022, and now we're in the Gen 3 championship. It's the 3rd generation of supercar, and it's a little bit colder than it was back in Gen 2 days, but the Gen 2 days, dude, it got to like 72 degrees one day at Adelaide, and I was in that car for 2 hours, 72 degrees at 2 hours. Like, could you sit in there for 72 degrees for 2 hours? You'd be dead.
No chance.
So, like, obviously we've got all these cooling systems and a cool suit, and we've got like airflow and a cold drink bottle, so everything helps out. But if one of those systems fails, you're toast.
Yeah.
So I remember getting out of that race, and I just sat down and I cried. Like, I was fucked, and I was just so distraught that I had to go through that experience. It was so hot and just so taxing that I just didn't. This was the Saturday, and I had to do that again on the Sunday, and mentally I just couldn't deal with it. So yeah, it's like that's a mental. I suppose that's a physical part, but it's also a mental part as well. The mental part is just knowing how to drive a car well, knowing how to set it up well, and I always like to think about it as a horse race. Like, when you go to the horses, you bet on the horse, don't you? Not so much on the jockey. And generally in motor racing, that's true. You bet on, even though the driver's name's in highlight because they're I suppose the organic component behind or in the car. The car does 95% of the job. Same as horse racing, I assume. That's why the good teams always will win the races, because they build the good cars, they have the good engineers, they tend to get the best drivers around, or what they think is the best drivers, and they'll win races. So yeah, in motor racing, it's all about the car, and that's the mental side, I suppose, to try and, we have engineering people behind us with large degrees and, massive sim packages and all these fluid dynamic stuff behind us and huge things I don't understand because I never went to uni to understand it. But they did, and, they obviously put all the settings in the car to make it faster, and they rely on our feedback, which is like a natural sort of feedback, understeer, oversteer, brake locking, whatever we can talk about to point them in the right direction to fix the problem. And they try and fix the problem for us, and we go ahead and do a faster lap time or a better race distance or whatever it might be. But I suppose the heat thing's like it can get to you before. Like I've had times in the past where your cool suit's failed, and literally 15 minutes later you fail, like you can't think.
Yeah,
it's shocking.
How do
Some
you?
people have actually passed out before,
Yeah.
And hit the fence. They've fallen asleep and crashed in the fence.
Really?
Steve Owen did it in, I'd like to say 2011, maybe something like that. So it is like harsh conditions, but it's funny. Like on the Saturday, you do like the hardest race of your life, 70-degree heat, 2-hour race, and you get out and you're like, there's no way I can do that again. But then overnight, your body adapts. And then on the Sunday, you do the exact same race, if not harder, and you're like, oh, that was easy. It's fucking weird.
It's like Ned Brockman.
Yeah, it's so weird. Every day gets easier.
Ned Brockman, what do you do? Ran
1,000 miles.
1,600 kilometres.
That's crazy, isn't it?
I think his shoe size went up three sizes.
Just from swelling.
Just from running, yeah.
Far out.
Just from running. I think, and you touched on the physical and the mental side. Mate, running around a track that many times.
Yeah.
And is that a similar analogy, I guess, for you? If you're in that mindset and you're exerting yourself so hard and you're driving around the same track, I'm assuming that's why some people would even pass out, just because it is. I know you're pushing your body to the limits, but there is an element of repetition as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you become very autopilot, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
Like your brain sort of turns off and tries to keep you safe, and actually gets to a point where you go slower, where you can lose up. You can, instead of pushing yourself, and because sometimes the car can be a little bit hard to drive, so it's moving around a bit, so you're constantly on the edge and pushing yourself back in the seat to try and feel the car, and you're always manipulating the car the best you can. Sometimes it can be quite a peak to drive, and then you tack on the extra heat as well. And sometimes you get to a point where your body goes, you've had enough, you'll have to go a second slower and stop driving at 100%, drive it at 90% just to finish the race.
How do you train to prepare for that?
Well, you do like a lot of sauna. Sauna really helps out. But to do a lot of heat training, it takes a lot of work, but you'll lose it really quick. So, leading into a really hot race, you might do your sauna every night and just keep trying to extend it out as long as you can. So when I first did sauna, when I first got my sauna a few years ago, I could sit in there for 15 minutes and I was like...
Is it like this?
No, it's a dry heat one.
Oh, living the dream.
So it gets to like 100 degrees, like it's boiling.
Love that.
Boiling. So the first day I ever got it, I sat in there for 15 minutes, I was cactus, like stuffed. And I remember about 4 weeks later, I could sit in there. I did it every second night. About 4 weeks later, I could sit in there comfortably not comfortably, but for 45 minutes. Yeah. I literally tripled the time I could spend in there. But then I had like 2 weeks off and I was back to square one, 15 minutes again. I was like, oh, I did all that work to lose it all in 2 weeks. I'm like, that sucks. But apparently that's heat adaptation. And when you read all the papers, you can lose it really quick.
How do you push, or you said before you push the car to the limit?
How do you?
No, yeah.
I suppose like over time you kind of just learn the limit of the tyre, and that's all you're trying to feel is the limit of the tyre. And you can set your car up to make that limit bigger, and you give yourself a bigger circle. I suppose we talk about the grip circle in motor racing. You give yourself a bigger circle to play in. And some cars have a very small circle, some cars have a big window. And you just learn it over time, and understeer, oversteer, and you learn how to drive tracks. Like what corner? What's the purpose of this corner? It leads onto a big straight. Okay, I need a good run out. I need to maximise my exit. So if you maximise your entry, you will minimise your exit and get a shit run out and lose time. So you're trying to find the best way around the track, and every corner has a different aspect of it. You need to drive to that corner, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
These things bring you to reality as to how fragile you are At the same moment, you are doing something that nobody else is able to do, the same moment that you are seen as the best, the fastest, and somebody that cannot be touched, you are enormously fragile. Ayrton Senna said that as well.
Yeah, that's true. What's he trying to say there?
It's a good question.
That's a good question, mate.
saw
Senna
that.
was a strange guy. Very, he was like very into religion and very, I suppose, philosophical in ways. Like those quotes are very full on.
What do you think he was trying to say?
Well, I suppose like when you're at the top, like I said, it's so easy. But when you're at the top, you got a big target on your back. In our sport, if you're at the top, there's 24 other blokes that want to shoot you in the back to try and take your spot. So you become quite vulnerable in that respect. And when you're at the top, everyone thinks you're doing something special or something different, and they want to find that out. So they'll be friendly to you in other ways to try and find out information that you might have. But really, yeah, you're just quite vulnerable and you can go back faster than you went up type thing. So maybe that's what he's trying to say. What's
the importance of people around you then, if that's the case?
Well, there's a great old saying in motor racing. It's get the best bunch of guys together, the smartest bunch of guys to work together, and then build a big fence around it so no one can poach your guys or come in and try and ruin it. So, yeah, that's a really good saying because you can get a really good team around you, but something small might shatter the fibres of the team, and then you got to start from scratch again. I've seen that time and time again in our sport where a really good working team has all the best components, all the best people, and then it takes one small fuck up, I suppose, or something to happen, and then it's all fallen apart and the team's disbanded.
Do you feel the pressure of that team behind you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Every time you hit the track, you're like, man, especially this week for me, because obviously we had a big crash at Bathurst and the boys are building a new chassis, so they've got about 1,000 hours work in front of them, and they've got 4 days or 5 days to do that work. So, they've got limited days to build a brand new chassis. So next time I hit the track, I'm going to have that in the back of my head going, don't crash this one, because they've just worked so hard to build this perfect brand new car for me. So, but if you're thinking about that, you probably shouldn't be out there in the first place. You should be trying to maximise every second you get out on the track to try and showcase the work they've done in the last week to make them feel good.
Would you see that crash? What would you see that crash as? Is it for lack of a better word, failure, or is it like?
Whenever you crash, I suppose, when you have a crash like that and it's not in a race and you're sort of by yourself, you're like, please tell me I did something wrong. And they've got all the data systems, everything to show, where you brake, how much brake pressure you got on, how much steering input you got on. And the worst part is with that accident I had at Bathurst in qualifying, I actually didn't do anything different than the lap before. I actually went in slightly slower than the lap before, so I should have been in more control. But what was happening, I think, was there's all this dirt getting dragged on from the corner before, and there's all this dust and dog shit getting dragged across the track. And I might have picked up some dirt from a car that's ran off in front of me, which I didn't know, I couldn't see. It was a little bit dusty at the time, but didn't look too bad, and I just pressed on. And I crested the hill going down Skyline, and I locked the rears and slid into the curb badly, and it spat me off the wrong way, and it was all gone, yeah. So I actually went back and said, Krusty, who's my engineer, his name is Richard Holloway, but we call him Krusty. I think it's from The Simpsons, have you seen, Krusty the Clown?
Yeah.
Herschel Krostowski is like a rabbi or something. He's like a really knowledgeable guy. I said, Krusty, please tell me I did something wrong. And he's like, oh, I don't think you did though. Like everything looks identical with lap before, except you went in slightly slower. I'm like, fuck. If I went in 5 meters deeper, I'd be like, that was all my fault. But I actually have nothing to blame.
What does a big crash feel like that one?
Well, it's not good. Sometimes like that, my crash was about 30 Gs, which is, it's decent, 30 times the force of gravity. Where a guy, Will Davison, who crashed like 5 or 10 minutes later than me, his car hit at a different point, like a side-on impact, and they said his crash was 60 Gs, so 60 times the force of gravity, so it was twice as large as mine.
How do you compare that? Sorry to cut you off. To like,
right.
do you know like a space? If you're going up in the space, do you know how many G's that is?
Oh, like when you're accelerating
Yeah.
and braking? Oh, I don't really know. That's a good question.
I was going to say, just as a point of comparison.
The point of comparison would be, so in Formula One, when they slam on the brakes, they probably get 5 Gs.
So it's big.
In an airplane like a fighter jet, they probably get 7 to 8 Gs maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So it's big.
Yeah, so like it's a lot of energy to feel in your body, and obviously the car absorbs most of it. So Will had 60, I had 30, but my car was more damaged than his was because of the where it crashed, I suppose. It all, like, it's happening, and you're like, if you actually watch that replay back, I realise I'm out of control, I'm about to crash. I'm like, oh fuck! You hear me scream, and then it's bang, it's all over, and he's like, oh shit, oh, I'm all right. Oh, wasn't that bad. I've had a few crashes in my life, and they're all over so quick. Some you can feel more than others, and others like that one, it didn't feel that bad. And that was my worst nightmare, to crash at that exact spot.
What was that?
Because I suppose you enter Skyline at about 225 kilometres an hour, and you sort of bleed speed over the crest, and you actually don't know where the track is until you're over the crest of that little mound there, and then you realise where you are in space and time and on the track, and then you're sort of navigating your way down to the dipper to try and get the best run out. And it's a very, very steep angle, so the car doesn't like to brake, obviously, when it's going downhill. So everything feels unnatural, and the walls are super close there, and as you crest the hill, you're looking at a wall that's like dead onto you, and that's the wall I hit, and that was the one wall I've never wanted to hit in my life, and that was always been my worst nightmare. And then I crashed, and it's like, oh, it's not, even my car's total wasn't, I feel fine. My neck was a bit sore the next day, but otherwise I was fine.
What does it feel like to drive at those speeds?
What's it feel like? It's honestly like when you're racing, it's no different to going down the freeway. You're doing 110 Ks down the freeway, and everyone's doing a similar speed. But at racing and down Bathurst, you're doing 285 Ks an hour. Everyone's doing the same speed as you. It's all the same. It's all relative.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like you're going 285 Ks at all.
Really?
It doesn't feel that fast, no.
Why is that?
Don't know, it just doesn't. The very first time I ever raced at Bathurst, I was in a Cup car, and a 996 Cup car, so this would have been 2005, and we would have done similar speed, 280, 275, whatever it was in that car, and that was the first time I realised, all right, I'm going fast. But I've done it so many times since then, it honestly doesn't feel that fast at all.
I think you said before, the first time we spoke, I said, you must be like, I think I even said it earlier, you must be like an adrenaline junkie. But now you're like, oh, I don't really see it that way anymore.
Yeah, I don't really see it that way, yeah. We don't really measure speed. We've got speed on our dash, but we're not looking at it ever.
Yeah.
We only look at it in safety car situations when we have to be at 80 Ks or whatnot. So, or pit lane's 40 Ks, which feels really slow when you've been going. Bathurst's average speed is 180 Ks, 190 Ks an hour, so that's the average speed. But yeah, I've never really, I don't know, never feels fast enough when you're trying to be the fastest and trying to get the fastest lap time.
Do you feel at peace when the helmet comes on?
To a certain extent, yes. When you're the top of the timesheet, that's when you're at peace. You've done your job well, your car's working well, you've done a good lap, executed everything you needed to. That's when you feel at peace. If you're second, they're not so happy. When you're third, and it sort of tricks down the order until you're at the top.
Must be hard to be content then.
Yes, it is very, very hard. That's why I said, like, most of the time you're actually disappointed in motor racing. And you're always, I suppose what motor racing teaches you is you're always trying to be better. You're always trying to make your team better, make your car better, make your process better, make your interaction of the day better, make it more fluid, make it more, you're just trying to use your days better, I suppose. And that's what, if you talk to someone who's gone from motor racing to like a normal corporate job, they go far out. Corporate life moves so slow. Like, they take ages to make a decision. They take ages to do something, where in motor racing, you have to be super vigilant and solve problems on the spot, or if you need to build a component. Back in the day where you used to build components, you used to build it for the next race, which would have been 2 weeks away, and you have not that long to build everything and make parts to make your car faster. So, you just have to be very vigilant and react to your problems. So you're always fixing your problem. But there's always problems to fix though, which
yeah, I was going to say, how do you deal with that? Yeah.
There's a new theory you're trying to fix, or the tyre slightly changes, like the build compound might change, or the build construction might change, or the track you're going to next round is a different track, has a different surface, it's at a different altitude, it has different, sun requirements or solar radiation reflect on it, or whatever it might be. Like, it's a huge science that you're playing with day in, day out. So you're constantly adjusting. So there's 3 different types of tyres in our sport. There's the hard, soft, and super soft, and and the wet tyre as well. So there's actually 4, and each tyre has a different, I suppose, metric to make it better. So it might have a different camber, different toe, different pressure, different spring, different roll bar, different setup, and you're constantly, and that's changing all the time every track you go to. So you never. It feels like you're never solving the same problem, if you know what I mean. It's always something different. And I suppose that's why I love our sport, because there's always a different problem to be solved.
I heard someone ask someone the other day in a podcast about the concept of competition. Mm-hmm. And
what did they say?
And they said it's very hard in my space. And I forgot what he was doing. But he said it's very hard for me to be content because there's always something I can be doing better.
Always, yep. In sport or any competition sport, there's always something you could be doing better. Whether it's looking at yourself, how you go about your day, or how about you go about your analysis of your weekend or whatever, or your team's analysis of how they go about their analysis. Like, there's so much stuff to think about, it's ridiculous.
How do you analyse?
How do we analyse? So after every session, we sit down with our engineers and we go through our problems of our car. So like understeer, oversteer, and they look at the data. So we've got all these sensors on the car. They go over the data and it spits out all these squiggly lines, and they read the lines and say, this is what we need to do, and we go from there. Obviously, that's a very basic summary of it, but you can go into very, very unique detail of every single corner and every single second and whatnot. But sometimes you don't have that long. You might have 20 minutes of debrief, and then they take us up to the corporate box to talk to all the corporates about whatever we talk about, or that we've got a signing session. In our sport, where we do too many of them, I think. We do too many signing sessions, too many corporate events. Corporate events are okay, but the signing session's quite long and can be quite full on, but we do a lot of them every weekend.
I was going to say, does that make it hard? I remember you saying yesterday that you probably see yourself as someone that doesn't like getting out in front of as many people as you can.
Everyone thinks I would be, but I'm not really. I like listening to people. I don't really like talking, and I like sitting at home just being myself and being quite simple. But every time I suppose it depends on how you feel. Like today, it's sad day, isn't it? Can I say it's sad day?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Saturday morning. It's a nice sad day out in Melbourne. Nice relaxing day. I feel pretty relaxed. Where towards a race weekend, you're trying to like amp yourself up for the week, if you know what I mean, to get ready to drive the car on its limit and face your fears and everything like that. So I suppose I feel different at the race meeting than I do on a non-race meeting. If we
had and sat down 2 weeks ago, a week before Bathurst, would we get a different David?
Yes, you get different answers too.
How so?
Well, I'd be thinking about the race constantly.
Yeah.
And my focus would be completely different. Where today I'm thinking about Gold Coast race, but not so much today.
I see that as well with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Just you're constantly thinking.
Always thinking about something.
Do you find it hard to be present sometimes then?
Some days, yes. Some days it's really hard, especially like on a race weekend, you sleep terribly bad. I try and sleep good. I take all these magnesium pills to try and make myself calm down and everything. But
do this stuff?
I can't at the race meeting. Obviously that's a good tool, but it's also it's a stress, isn't it? And your body needs to recover from a stress. So you're trying to go into your week recovered, I suppose, where you're not depleted in any way. So doing that stuff at the race meeting, even though I suppose after the race we have an ice bath. Yes, we do. Sometimes I do it before the race to try and like cool myself right down and take all the heat out if it's a really hot day. So I get in the car fresh, and I still heat up to like ridiculously hot temperatures. And being a light guy, I feel like I heat up a lot quicker than the bigger guys. Like the bigger guys in our sport. And so I'm a little guy. I'm probably 69 kilos, 68 kilos. We've got some big guys in our championship, probably 100 kilos. Even though I have to add weight to my car to be that weight, it feels like they do the races easier than me, even though I'm probably much fitter than they are, because they have, I suppose, like a mass protecting them from the heat, if you know what I mean. Like they probably store more water. And if I was to lose like 600 mils of water, that's like a large percentage of my body weight, where if they lose 600 mils, it's half the amount. So, there's probably that aspect as well. That's why in our sport, it's not a real physical sport, even though it can be. It's actually it's actually easier to put on weight or to race with weight than it is to race with no weight, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
What was the question you asked? Sorry, I got sidetracked.
That's the whole point of a conversation like this, is getting sidetracked.
Over here.
I was going to ask about your, I guess, do you think about your legacy as well?
Not at all.
Something you said.
Absolutely no way.
Yeah.
I just do it, and whatever people remember me as, I'm happy to be remembered.
I've spoken to a lot of people on this podcast about like the whole identity piece.
Yeah, okay. What do they say?
Well, obviously it's relative to what they're, I guess, what they're doing.
Yeah.
So for someone, I'm interested to go down this path as well with the whole identity piece. Someone like you, for someone that's been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
And I know you don't like being asked what you're going to do afterwards, but like...
What am I going to do afterwards?
No, it's more so like when the time comes, like, do you think it'll be a struggle to transition?
Yeah, massive. Like,
yeah.
I suppose all I've ever known is to get up and race cars. I don't know anything else. I'm actually... we've got a team of about 30 people. I'm probably the most unqualified in the team. I actually have no qualifications in life whatsoever. But I can race a car pretty well. And when that stops, your identity does stop a little bit, I suppose. And I have no idea if it's going to affect me. I reckon it's going to affect me a lot more than I think. I'll be prepared for it when it happens. But I'll transition my life into whatever I need to do to refocus my life and pick up something else and try and be the best at that.
You spoke about your kids changing your life.
Yes.
Do you think they'll make it easier?
Yes, it will, definitely. Because whatever happens, rain, hail or shine, $1 million, $0, I still have my family. And that's really all that matters.
We also touched on how it changed your life. Can you touch or go into that a bit further?
Yeah, definitely. So my missus, I've been with her for like over 10 years, and she's been bugging me for a long time to have a kids, like forever.
Really?
She even bought clothes for our future son for our future baby in 2015. And we never had our first kid till like 2021. So
really?
I know that's mental.
She knows what she wants.
She knows what she wants. She does, yeah. But I'm glad she wore me down over time, because I was really worried about, because I suppose growing up I was always career focused, like racing's my number one goal in life and da-da-da-da. And I thought kids would like distract me from that. And as soon as my son was born, I was like, what the fuck was I worried about? Like, why did I have that selfish, immature thought about a son of like a kid that comes into my life, it's my own kid, ruining that path. I'm like, fuck, it's actually given me purpose to continue on that path and be better. And that's what I didn't realise until Ryan was born. As soon as he was born, I was like, what was I worried about? That was just so stupid of me to think that. And it was immature of me to think that. And yeah.
What's your advice to someone like me?
Honestly, the best thing I've ever done in my life by a million miles.
This goes into my next thing. What would your advice be to someone like me that has that feeling?
Don't have that feeling. It is actually a very selfish thought, and it's immature, I think.
Really?
I think so. Like, think about it. You're constantly focused on yourself, but as soon as someone comes along that you need to take care of, you're like, fuck, his life matters way more than mine, but I know I need to do my job to support him, so I need to do my job better. So that's how I think now. But you have to do it with some girl you love and make a really cool, beautiful family. That's the best.
And how have they changed you? I know we spoke about it before, but do you want to dive in deep?
Oh, there's just no better feeling than coming home. Yeah. No matter what day you've had, you might have crashed your car, come last, whatever, and they'll still love you regardless.
I was literally
they just
on the
love
topic.
You regardless, and they think you won no matter where you come, because they just love you.
On the topic of being present, I mean, that must make it easier.
It does, yeah, it does.
Yeah,
much easier to be at home with your kids and family. The hardest thing is to like put your phone down, turn your phone off when you're at home. That's the best thing you'll ever do, and the day will just be the easiest day of your life.
Does it make it hard when you're away from them, or are you still?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It gets harder and harder for some reason, because I think your kids start to know when your bag's packed, and when you go out the front door, you're not going to see dad for a bit, so they start to cry and they don't want you to go. And like every time you drive away from the house, or sometimes you start crying because you're like, oh, I don't want to go. It's so sad to see my boy upset like that, and then this is actually really sad.
What questions do you think everyone should ask themselves at some stage in their life?
What questions should they ask themselves? That's a good question. I have no idea.
Really?
What questions should you ask yourself?
What do I want?
What do you want? Where do you want to be?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Where do you want to be? So I always ask myself, where do I want to be? And I'd love to be in Queensland. Because I've been in Melbourne for too long and this place sucks and I hate it. I've been trying to leave for like 15 years. No, maybe 10 years.
Really? No, that's a...
And I look at those people up in like the Sunshine Coast, and that just looks like they live the best life, don't they?
Yeah.
Don't they? Even in Brisbane or Gold Coast, like they get up every day, they walk on the beach, the weather's beautiful, everyone's happy. And then you come to Melbourne and it's pissing down rain, it's freezing and everyone's angry, and I don't know. It's just a funny place.
Do you think that'll happen?
One day I think it would, one day. But all my work's based here, so up until then, I suppose I'm based here for now. I do rag on Melbourne, but I like it from time to time. Just when winter's like getting too long, does your head.
We're in the best part of it now, I reckon.
Yeah, you like spring?
I like spring.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too hot. You talked about being too hot.
Yeah.
Saunas are good, but you want to be in some form of comfort, I reckon.
That's true. Yeah.
40 next year, mate. Bit going on. Your reflection on you said you were coming up on 40. Does your career feel like a click?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I first started, it felt like the biggest mountain in front of me and I was going to be on it forever. But obviously, I'm towards the end of it now, but I might not be towards the end of it. I can actually, honestly, you can race as long as you want to, as long as you're fast. But they, like team owners, they always want, I suppose the people who run our sport, they always want younger. They think they can get more out of them somehow, but they don't have the experience or whatever might happen. You can actually race for a long time. And I told that story about Jim Richards hosing me for when I was 21, and I thought I was like a young gun, and I didn't understand it then. But then I understood. I'm like, you can go in this sport for as long as you want to.
Did you get told off a lot in your early parts of your career?
Oh, absolutely.
Or still?
Yeah, still get told off. Not as much. Not as much anymore, but when I was younger, I got told off all the time.
That built up a degree of resentment?
Resentment to...
I get it a bit.
Do you?
Yeah. Just because you're on a different path.
Yeah, 100%.
And then you're just like, I just want to separate myself from everyone almost.
Yeah, 100%. I got told off all the time when I was a junior. Fucking actually hated motor racing. There was a part I just hated it. Hated it so much. But I suppose over time you learn to, I don't know, just be more of yourself, and it becomes a bit easier when you get older, I think. Just to
Is that
manage your life a bit
because
better.
you've developed as a person? And we've touched on the
Definitely, yeah.
mental. Yeah.
You definitely develop as a person. When you're a bit younger, you don't understand that. And then obviously when you're younger, your goals are different. You just have like, you want to be a world champion, you want to race Formula One, and then you realise, far out, I'm actually not going to get there. It's going to be impossible for me to get there. So then you need to like reevaluate your goals and everything, and go from there.
What would you tell yourself if you were starting your career again?
What would I tell myself? Just enjoy it more, I think. Like, don't stress out so much. Just enjoy it more. And everyone says that, don't they? Everyone says if I was talking to my younger self, don't stress so much, and don't worry about the small things, because little spot fires put himself out all the time without you doing anything.
Mate, been an unreal chat. Thanks so much for sitting down with me.
No worries, man.
I think it'd be remiss of me not to touch on your love of steak as well.
Yes.
What brought that on?
What brought that on? Really good question. Obviously, over the last few years, I've been doing this. I've been pretty much meat only now for about 3 years. And over the last few years, I've noticed just people talk about it and they have really good results with it. Whether it's weight loss, strength, overall health, whatever it might be. And I'm like, I got to a point in my life where I still trained, like quite persistently, like every day, and I still put on weight just a little bit every year. And then I got to like, so I'm about 68 kilos now, and I got to like 76 kilos, and I'm like, far out. I don't feel like I eat a lot, and I eat all the right foods. Ate a lot of vegetables and meats and everything, and pretty much was paleo for a long time. And then I'm like, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to give it a go. So I rode my bike down to Hagen's. You know Hagen's?
Yeah.
In Paran there. I used to live around the corner, literally. And then I packed my bag out full of meats, and I just went home and just ate nothing but meat for, I reckon, I didn't touch anything else for 6 months. And I literally lost 5 kilos in the first like 10 days. And I continued to lose weight for another month or two until I got to like 66 kilos. And everyone thought I was sick because I just looked so skinny. And I'm like, then I told them, like, hang on, I'm just eating meat. That's it. I'm not eating anything else. And they're just
Salt?
like, hey?
Salt?
Oh, there's salt as well.
Yeah.
And they're just like, that can't be right. I'm like, well, give it a go and you'll find out. Everyone that did it lost considerable amount of weight and felt amazing. I did it. One of my best friends, he lives in Adelaide, Scott Holland, legend of a guy. He was like 133 kilos, and I got him to do it. And he got down to 118 kilos in like 3 weeks.
Wow.
He lost so much weight in a very short space of time. And people train, they train so hard to lose like a kilo a month, don't they? And I was like, all right, it's like I've unlocked the secret of life. And I felt good, I slept good, like everything just became a lot easier. So I literally stayed on that path for 3 years now.
There's always still going to be people that think it's crazy though.
Yeah, I know, always, but it really depends on who you talk to. Obviously, there's a lot of smart doctors coming out saying, all the effects of cholesterol and how good it is for life and da-da-da-da. When you do my cholesterol, it's just ridiculously high.
Yeah.
And you do all your heart tests and everything, and they're completely perfect. So I'm not stressed at all about any health implications, because I don't think there's any health implications from just eating meat only. And
I think you're a smart man to think that as well, mate. Yeah. I've always had that view, and I remember I went to my local butcher probably when I grew up, probably 12 months ago I went there, and this is before I started the page and everything, and he's like, oh, we remember you were like the kid that used to come in all the time, and I would order mince and I would get heaps of fat to add in.
Yeah, awesome.
And that was like actually how this all started.
Yeah.
I was eating heaps of other food, and then I was like, I don't want to be doing this, so that's how I started.
Yeah, okay.
The journey.
It's good, isn't it?
It's the best.
I'll probably continue this for the rest of my life. The only problem is it's a little bit expensive. It can be if you eat like the best cut meats all the time, but you can do it a bit cheaper.
You've just got to win more races, mate. Then it won't be an issue.
But like when you think about it, because you cut out everything else, you're not buying all the other stuff. But I'm still feeding my family, so I still buy the other things, even though I don't really like giving it to them.
Yeah.
But my kids, they just prefer to only eat meat. And
Really?
a lot of kids, they prefer meat. That's their first choice of food, I suppose. When they start eating solid food, is they can stomach meat.
Maybe you could be the next Chafee, mate. Not even Chafee. Next someone like me, just a meat person.
Just a meat guy. Just a meathead.
Thank you, mate. Anything you want to end with?
No, it's up to you. It's your thing, dude.
No.
I'm here to support
I'm happy.
you.
I'm happy. Awesome. I appreciate your time.
No, it's legend. Thanks for having me, man.
All good.